So a really cool thing happened last week. A follower of mine on Instagram reached out to me and told me that he really liked my work. I watch your YouTube videos, I watch your reviews, and I dig what you're doing. What gets interesting is he told me, hey, I really like that review of the Shelby GT350 that you recorded last October in Monticello. And where the story gets even more interesting is that he says, yeah, I'd really like to buy one too. And that's where we get to where I am right now. And that's because the car that he wants to buy, it's right here. It's this Shelby GT350 in competition orange. But the kicker is that this is in Williamsville, New York at Basil Resale Sheridan, just right around the corner, 5 minutes from my house. And the gentleman who wants to buy the car, he's located all the way over in Indiana. So he hits me with a proposition. Hey, Austin, I think this would make for some really good content for you, but also I really think that you're an expert in the area and I would trust you to take a look at the car for me and say, hey, yes, should I buy the car, or no, it's not worth it. So here we are. We're taking a look. This is a 2016 Shelby GT350, again in competition orange. This one has just over 9,200 miles, so pretty much a baby, but you might be asking yourself, what's the catch? And the catch is, this is the cheapest Shelby GT350 on sale in the United States, but why is it the cheapest? And it's the cheapest because it has an accident. So this is an interesting topic to cover because, should I buy a car with an accident? Should I stay away? There's a lot of different opinions. So I'm going to run you through what happened with this vehicle and talk to you just a little bit about, hey, is it worth it? Should we buy this car? And why is it only $39,000? This was, over $50,000 new just 2 years ago. So let's get into what makes this particular Shelby different and what we think the ultimate choice should be. Now, if you follow me, you know how I feel about the GT350 Shelby. It's a really special car. It's got the 5.2-liter Voodoo V8 pumping out 526 horsepower, and that makes it really, really fun in a straight line. But the kicker is the way that it handles around corners, on back roads, and racetrack. The Shelby is one of the greatest American cars I've ever driven, but it's also just one of the greatest cars I've ever driven. And on top of that, I think that it may just be one of the best valued performance cars on the market today. I could talk for days about the Shelby GT350, and I did, and you should go watch my original video where I dive into a lot more of the performance details and what makes the Shelby so special. But let's talk about this car. Why is this car the cheapest Shelby on sale in the United States? Why is it only $39,000? Well, that's because it has an accident. There's a lot of opinions that go around about cars with accidents. Should I buy one? Should I stay away? Should I avoid it like the plague? A lot of people have different ideas, but this particular car is a little different, and I'm going to tell you why I think that just because this has an accident, we shouldn't be scared of purchasing this vehicle. So the accident with this particular car occurred in the front end, and this is where a lot of accidents tend to occur. But with this particular Shelby and all Shelbys from the GT350 era, the front splitter sticks out very far, so this can make driving the car a little tricky. And as you can see, there's a large crack in the front splitter. It goes deeper than the front splitter though, and it moves into the bumper alignment. And you can see here that the bumper alignment is slightly off. Now, this probably happened with a push or hit to the front end. Furthermore, there's cracking to the under tray that protects some of the critical elements of the engine, the cooling systems, the radiator, and there are cracks on both sides underneath the car, which causes me to think, again, just a slight hit to the front area of the vehicle. And finally, the extent of the damage reaches onto the wheels. Now, the front passenger wheel has curbing and about half of the wheel and two pretty significant chunks missing from the Pilot Super Sport tires. Moving on to the passenger rear wheel, there is again significant curbing on about half of the wheel. Now, this caused me to believe that either all in one situation this damage occurred or in separate situations. And finally, there's damage to the driver front wheel. Again, just some curbing and a small piece of tire missing. So what this sale comes down to is, do I want to replace 3 out of 4 wheels, or maybe just go a cheaper route and touch them up a little bit, do some cosmetic fixes, not go full replacement? And secondly, do I want to replace that front splitter and front under tray? Because unless you're like me and you really are very detail oriented, you're not really going to notice those things. So do those two things bother you? And if they do, maybe this isn't the car for you. But if they don't, you're getting a car for $39,000 that was about 20 grand more just 2 years ago and 9,000 miles ago. And it's a pretty great car to buy. So this is where it comes down to you. What do you want to do? What do you think is the move? And do you want to see yourself in a competition orange Shelby GT350 hauling ass all the way to 8250 RPM? So everyone knows I'm a big exhaust guy, so let's drop this thing down off the alignment machine and give it a start up and some quick revs. Hear this 5.2 liter V8 and how good it sounds. Then we'll take it outside, give it a shakedown test drive, just make sure everything drives well, make sure everything's copacetic, because listen, the thing about this car is it's probably all visual, but we do just want to check and make sure that the thing drives just as well as it looks or doesn't. So let's get it down and find out. So here we are. This is the car in question. This is the, I shouldn't say cheapest, but the least expensive Shelby GT350 on sale in the United States. Yep, that hasn't changed. Despite the price, this thing drives excellently, and we're just going to give it a quick little shakedown just to make sure that the damage in question and the accident in question is just an accident, just cosmetic really, and make sure that this thing performs, you know, how it should. So as I discussed in my review last October, there's a lot more to the Shelby than just straight line power, which was the traditional characteristic of most Mustangs. But this thing really drives like a European car, and it handles like a European car, both on road and on track. And I've discussed it time and time again. I'm not sure if I like it better on road or on track. That's how well-rounded this car is. So we're really just rolling into the throttle today. It's about 35 degrees in Buffalo, New York, and we're on Pilot Super Sport tires, so we want to be real careful and just make sure that this thing does drive the way it should, but not get too crazy. I've had my fun on a racetrack, so we don't need to go crazy. I say that and then I do that. God, that exhaust. The exhaust never gets old. It really doesn't. That might be, other than just the handling and driving characteristics of it, that might be the best thing about the car. It's really just difficult to beat. So on-ramps are terrifying, so we're going to go really slow and just give you that exhaust noise that, listen, if you clicked on the video because you want to buy one, that's one thing, but you also want to hear what it sounds like. All the way up to 8250. That's what makes this car so special. It's not just another Mustang. You see them all the time, but the difference in this car is really just something else, and you really get to understand the difference in the engine and the way it performs when you go from 6 to 8 grand, because you know, you've driven a lot of anyone's driven cars that go up to 6,000 or 7,000 RPM, and that's fun. But when you get that extra 1,000, 1,500, that's when you know that you're driving something really, really special. That's 5 grand. We're nowhere near the limits of this car. And that's why, pro tip, if you buy this car, please take it on track, because you will never, without getting arrested, you'll never, you'll never find even close to the limits of what this thing can do. Alright, so that completes the little shakedown test drive, and from a mechanical standpoint, from a driving standpoint, this thing feels solid as hell. If you're inside the car, you can't tell that there's any cosmetic damage, and that's what's important in this purchase, and that's what's important to justify buying a car with an accident on the CarFax. Transmission feels great, steering feels great, Brembo brakes feel amazing, and of course that engine pulls all the way up to 8250, no problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it, cheapest Shelby in the country. It sounds pretty good to me. So thank you again, everyone, for watching, and to the potential owner of this vehicle, I really hope that you go with this car, because it really is special and it deserves an owner who's gonna give it a rip, because I know that if I owned this thing, I would give it a rip all the time. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you later.